Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you. Permit me to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to you, depending on where you are watching from. I am Pastor Maxwell Nawihe. I'm the spiritual leader of our Enlightenment broadcast. This is aimed at trying to bring to light the truth, justice that is long overdue, that has been denied Mazi Nnamdi Kanu by the government of Nigeria. I am not against the government, but I'm against a government or a system that is not acting according to their own laws. Because what is the precedence? What will be the yardstick that the common man will be used to be judged? When the common man will be judged in the court, there is what is called a citation of authority. Citation of authority deals with previous cases similar to the case that is being tried in court at the moment, ranging from the time that such relevant laws were enacted and being enforced or being put into the Constitution of Nigeria, being enacted. Just like 1999 Constitution that is amended, there are some laws that were amended, some were repealed, some were introduced. From 1999 to today, that is the very Constitution that Nigeria is using. And from that very Constitution, every other law in Nigeria, be it act, be it whatever law it is, customary law, even if it is in the industrial court, in the customary court, if it is in the magistrate court, every other law, every police act, every custom act, any kind of act in Nigeria, there is now a law binding on anyone that is involved in any practice or any business, in such field, in such parastatal, in such arm of government, or in such government establishment. That very act must derive its legitimacy, must derive its strength, its legality, its legitimacy from the Constitution, which is the ground norm. The Constitution is the ground norm. The lawyers used to say that you cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stand. So the Constitution is the foundation of every law in Nigeria. The same Constitution, 1999 as amended, stated very clearly that any law in Nigeria that is not consistent with the Constitution is a nullity. Any law, any act of any kind that the government may rely upon, that companies, corporate organizations, or individuals, or the citizens of the country, or any government agency or authority or establishment, any law that they may rely upon that is not in consistency, that is not consistent, that is not in agreement with the Constitution of Nigeria, such a law should be set aside. That is what the Constitution of Nigeria said. Now, the citation of authority, I've dealt with this in the previous broadcasts at different times, but I'm repeating this for the sake of those that may be joining us for the first time. Citation of authority is, for instance, as the case of Nnamdi Kanu is going on right now, there was a case that was called the case of Umaru Dikko. That very case was the case of extraordinary rendition, which is exactly what is being done to Nnamdi Kanu. He was extraordinarily renditioned from Kenya to Nigeria. Umaru Dikko was extraordinarily renditioned from Britain, from London to Nigeria. And he was taken back to London, and the government of Britain brought to justice the people that perpetrated such crimes. I'm not here to mention names because it's not within my my circumference or within my purview to do so. I am trying to cite an example which has given rise to people like us taking it upon ourselves to speak when people who were in position to speak have chosen to keep mute because it doesn't affect them directly, or it has nothing to do with their personal interests. Umaru Dikko, he was extraordinarily renditioned from Britain to Nigeria. And that was an international crime against international law, which talks about or stipulates extradition without a hearing. He was kidnapped and put in a crate and bundled back to Nigeria. And the British government said, no, such kind of international crime cannot be committed on the soil of Britain without a very severe legal consequence. The perpetrators, being the agent of the government of Nigeria that carried out such extraordinary rendition, they were imprisoned. They were put in prison. And Nigeria was banned from the Commonwealth benefits. So, in the case of Nnamdi Kanu, why is it that the same Britain has decided to fold its arms? Why is it? From the time of the former British Prime Minister, David Cameron, this very crime was committed against Nnamdi Kanu. Theresa May, she was aware of all the plight of the Biafran people and what persecution that the Nigerian government, which is a Commonwealth nation, a Commonwealth country, is being perpetrating or carrying out against the citizen of Britain, Nnamdi Kanu. The very present Prime Minister of Great Britain is aware. The current monarchy, the current king of the Great Britain, Prince Charles III, is aware. The International Attorney of Nnamdi Kanu, Bruce Fenn, has written to him. That very letter, I am going to bring it to your knowledge, not today, maybe in the nearest future. I will bring it to this very platform as part of our enlightenment broadcast. They are aware of all the detention. Or Katrina Lang, the former British High Commissioner in Nigeria, was aware. She acted in the light of injustice with a consciousness of helping or straightening the hand of the government to continuously subjugate the people of Biafra by holding down Nnamdi Kanu. United Nations judgment speaks very expressively. The caption of our broadcast today explains it more and more, and we will continue to let the world know and understand that what is being carried out or what is being committed, what is going on in the country that is called Nigeria against Nnamdi Kanu is nothing but the travesty of the law, the subversion of the constitution, and every human being at it. Don't smile, because tomorrow it is going to come back to you. It is going to come back to you. It is going to become an authority. It is going to become an authority. How Nnamdi Kanu is being judged today, another person will be judged in the same form, in the same way, in the same like and manner in the court of Nigeria. And by the time you decide to cry, as I said in the previous broadcast, by the time you decide to cry, the ears of justice will be deaf to the voice of your cry. Justice to one is justice to all. Injustice to one is injustice to all. It becomes a precedent. Sunday Buho has been released. He is still agitating for the freedom of his people, the Yoruba people, to create an independent Oduduwa nation from Nigeria, free from Nigeria, here in Africa. So what is the difference? Nnamdi Kanu is because he's an Igbo man, he's a Biafran man. He has spoken so extensively that pricked the consciences of the government, be it the former, be it the president or the present government. All of them are all one and the same. There's no new administration in Nigeria. All of them are the same, flat rate. They are all at the same page, the same level of corruption, the same level with the very predisposition to defend the indefensible. The territorial integrity of Nigeria has been altered. A section of Yoruba people are in Benin Republic, some are in Togo. Why then are you talking about to defend the territorial integrity of Nigeria when part of the citizen is in two different countries? The boundary has been altered. The territory of Nigeria has been altered. So this is the focus of our broadcast today. I'm bringing to the screen without further ado. We have a lot of things on our hands after this time. We have been very busy and we decided to come to you with this enlightenment broadcast. And after this, we will go back to what we are doing. Now, before you, it is on the screen. We are going to begin from the paragraph, I think, the paragraph 85, because yesterday the network messed up the broadcast. It was so pathetic yesterday. We had no choice than to end the broadcast. We didn't even know that some paragraphs we broadcasted did not go through. It didn't come through. Network didn't allow them to come through to you. Once again, if you're just joining us, I'm Pastor Maxwell on the way here. If you want to be privy, if you want to come in contact or go through or listen or watch all these other enlightenment broadcasts on this platform, on Facebook, on the Twitter, on YouTube, try and Google it. Google search engine, Google it there. If you go to YouTube, search for it. If you go to Facebook or Twitter, try and search for it. If you don't know how to search for it, simply type Pastor Maxwell on the way. Simply type Maxwell on the way or Pastor Maxwell on the way broadcasts or messages or prophecy, either in Google search or on YouTube, X, or Facebook. You will see a whole lot of them and they will link you to one another. Thank you very much for bearing with us. Now, this is paragraph 84. The working group notes that it is not contested that Mr. Khan is accused of the crime of conspiracy to commit a for felony through an agreement with others to be broadcasted from London in view of establishment of a Biafran sovereignty. The source notes that while treason consists of living war against Nigeria under Nigerian law, the federal government of Nigeria does not allege any action implicating Mr. Kanu in the contemplation, planning, or incitement of war against Nigeria. The source argues that Mr. Kanu was in fact advocating for a peaceful referendum for the establishment of a Biafran sovereignty in conformity with international and other relevant laws. Okay, the source here in reference is Bruce Fine, as I've explained several times in previous broadcast. Let's go to paragraph 85. That is where we are going to be making some analysis, if possible, and proceed with the following subsequent paragraphs. I hope my voice is still coming out because I'm seeing the network. MTN is useless in Nigeria. Airtel network is useless in Nigeria. Glow is useless. These are major competing network of service providers in Nigeria. They are all useless. I am saying it today for the first time because I can't hold it anymore. They are very, very useful. If you come where we are, you will see a lot of telecom masts. Glow, they have their telecom masts around. Airtel the same, MTN the same, but they can provide efficient network, stable and that. It's not raining. It's not raining here. Unbelievable. We must continue. Paragraph 85. Let me confirm this. My voice is coming. Please, I want to confirm it. Don't be angry. It's not my fault. If I am in charge of the network, this nonsense cannot happen. If I am, because I'm a man of standard, I have a taste. Quality and integrity is my major watchword and principle. Those that know me understand it very well. Not in recent time, from the very, very beginning of time. Even as a child, I have taste and I have class. These people, these service providers are useless and wicked. MTN. There was a time I boycotted them for 3 years. I never subscribed, I never recharged. They kept on sending me message, begging me, because I knew the volume of data I was utilizing every month, and I stopped it. Airtel the same. I don't know where else to go. I have confirmed that my voice is coming out. We must continue. Paragraph 85. Noting the failure of the government to explain what actions of Mr. Kano amounted to such criminal acts of expression. He is being persecuted. The working group saying it, not Maxwell saying it. I'm not running away from any consequence of this very truth, but I'm trying to put it very, very, very clearly as it is before everyone that is watching on this very screen that this very statement is credited to the working group of the United Nations, working group Human Rights Council's working group on arbitrary detention. It is in this very office, it is their predisposition to give such a ruling. It is their responsibility, it is their duty as a group in the United Nations, because this very issue of arbitrary detention falls on the table to handle. No other group in the United Nations will be able to handle it. Okay? It is their duty, and they are speaking, noting the failure of the government to explain what actions of Mr. Kanu amounted to such criminal acts and how, and observing the lack of any evidence that any of his actions may in fact amount to such crimes. The working group concludes that Mr. Kanu is in fact being persecuted for the peaceful exercise of his rights, most notably his freedom of opinion and expression. This is the focus of our broadcast in this very segment of the Enlightenment broadcast. That is the focus. That is the focus. Welcome back, wherever you are. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, I am Pastor Maxwell Inawahi. We are looking at this very paragraph 85. What are they trying to explain here? What are they trying to explain here? What they are saying is that, looking at the allegation that they have brought forward against Nnamdi Kanu, which is the charges that they have brought to the court of Nigeria, trying to justify their reason of his extraordinary rendition, the government of Nigeria failed to substantiate their allegations against Nnamdi Kanu. What was the allegation? That Nnamdi Kanu was contemplating or trying to incite the people to carry out a treasonable felony against Nigeria, to be broadcasted from a radio in London. This is a crime, okay? Now, the opportunity was given to the Nigerian government to explain, to submit, to make its own response or submission, because there is a report or a submission that is made against the government in the role of bringing Nnamdi Kanu back to Nigeria to face trial under this very charge. What was that submission? That Nnamdi Kanu has been arrested arbitrarily and detained arbitrarily, and there was torture. He the Department State Security Services in Nigeria and Abuja, and detained under all manner of inhuman and degrading treatment, which is contrary to his human rights. His human rights as guaranteed by the international laws and the United Nations Charters and Declarations or Universal Declaration of Human Rights and their relevant principles and charters, both the Vienna Convention of 1963, if I'm not mistaken. The International Attorney of Mars and Americana went to the United Nations and made these submissions, accusing the government of Nigeria of committing international crime, which is extraordinary rendition in collusion with the Kenyan government. And so, as an independent and a very respectable body, global body, United Nations, more especially the very group that is saddled with the responsibility to deal with this very matter, which is Human Rights Council, the working group on arbitrary detention. They went into investigation to find out if the submission of the International Attorney of Mars and American has any bearing when it comes to the rule of law or the international laws, and to see how they can place the role of the government of Nigeria and the role of the government of Kenya in the eyes of the law, on the weight, the scale of judgment and justice, to know if their role is found wanting according to the law, more especially international law, such laws that guarantees and protects the right of the indigenous people, right to freedom of expression, right to freedom of opinion, right to receive knowledge and impact knowledge, right to communicate any kind of idea according to the, foregone paragraphs that we have broadcasted and analyzed. They now communicated to the government of Nigeria and said, look at the submission that is made against the government. That was in the time of the former president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari. What is your response? The then Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, simply sent a report or a response on behalf of the government stating that the government cannot respond or dive into making certain decisions with regards to the case of Mazen at the time. That was 2022. That the case is ongoing in national courts. In other words, they are trying to say we cannot begin to talk about this case when it is in the court. The trial is going on in the court. It would be like trying to preempt the judgment or the outcome of the court. That is not even, I'm just helping them to add this very part. What they just responded to the United Nations was that the case is ongoing in national court, and for government to do anything about it, it will be unconscionable. I have analyzed this in the previous broadcast. I don't want to do that again. And the United Nations was so upset with such a response. And they clearly stated in this judgment that such a response is not sufficient. They did not clarify, they did not defend themselves with substance and evidence in reference to different reliable international laws in accordance with the UN charters and declarations, universal declarations of human rights, which protects the rights that Mazen Nnamdi Kanu is expressing peacefully. So, that is what the paragraph 85 is trying to say. That the government of Nigeria failed to explain what actions of Mazen Nnamdi Kanu that amounted to treasonable felony and how. That is exactly what this very paragraph is saying. How? When you say that he wants to commit treasonable felony against the Nigerian government or against the Nigerian state, how? Come and explain. How? What is the evidence? What are the actions? How? Explain. You can't just say, you cannot be the judge and the jury. How? Explain to us, because we oversee and we have a charter. We have a covenant. We have series of conventions that supports and gives legitimacy and credibility internationally to what Mazen Nnamdi Kanu is asking for. The referendum of Biafra to be independent from Nigeria. Come and explain to us how that is treasonable felony. Come and tell us. Explain it. The International Attorney of Nnamdi Kanu has made a submission. Here are the submissions. Come and explain. Make your own submissions. The government of Nigeria couldn't do it. Kenya did not even respond, even a word, when they were also asked to respond in their role in collusion with that of the government of Nigeria to extraordinarily rendition Mazen Nnamdi Kanu. That is what the paragraph 85 is saying. Trailing him until you found him and abducted him from the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, Nairobi, Kenya, and abducted him. What are they to prove? Your claims and your charges against him. So, at the end of the day, the government was not able to explain. Now, the working group also went on to observe that there was a lack of evidence that any of the actions of Mazen Nnamdi Kanu will be able to amount to a treasonable felony. Okay? That is what the paragraph 85 is explaining. Also, the group went on to say that, in conclusion, that Mazen Nnamdi Kanu is in fact, not by assumption, in fact, not because they are bribed. Who is even Nnamdi Kanu to bribe United Nations? How much will Nnamdi Kanu give to United Nations to bribe them? How much? How much do IPOB have? And do you know, IPOB did not contribute money to fund this very process to obtain this very international judgment from the United Nations on a very good authority. It was not IPOB global family that went to the United Nations in order to obtain this very judgment. So how much do you think that was involved to obtain this type of global, legendary, generational, and transgenerational judgment? Because this very judgment has already gone down in the annals of history. It has become a working document. This judgment, I have said several times, for the past 2 years and the past 1 year, I've been saying it, that this very judgment of the United Nations has smoothened the path for the Biafra referendum, because it is a detailed document that speaks about the agitation of Nnamdi Kanu and that of IPOB, and the legitimacy that they derive from the international law, even in the domestic laws of Nigeria. So, this very judgment is going to be used as a very powerful instrument and reference to justify the need for the peaceful referendum for the Biafran people to exit Nigeria peacefully, not through war. The judgment said, I'm going to bring it back to the screen, and with that, very soon, in the next 2 minutes or so, we're going to bring this broadcast to an end. The judgment stated very clearly that, in conclusion, Mazen Nnamdi Kanu was being persecuted and is still being persecuted for the peaceful exercise of his rights, and more especially, most notably, his freedom of expression. I'm bringing it back to the screen now. And with that, we're going to close in the next 2 minutes or so, because we have other engagement in our hands, after which we may come back to you to continue this very enlightenment broadcast or any other important information we need to bring to your attention. It is on the screen. Noting the failure of the government to explain what actions of Mr. Kanu amounted to such criminal act and how, and observing the lack of any evidence, the government could not provide any evidence. If they have, they would have furnished the United Nations with such evidence in order to bury the case of Nnamdi Kanu once and for all. But they don't have. So they couldn't provide any evidence that in any of his actions may in fact amount to such crimes. Concludes that Mr. Kanu is in fact, based on evidence, being persecuted. He is in fact being persecuted for the peaceful, note the word, peaceful exercise of his what? Rights, which we have enlightened our people for several times, most notably his freedom of opinion and expression. And with this, we bring this very powerful enlightenment segment of our broadcast to an end. I am Pastor Maxwell. Now we see you soon with some other segments. Bye-bye.